Hi, my name is Mona and I build these short videos to support people and organizations build their change capability. Today's session is about change management methodology. So I get asked quite a bit, what activities do we take and facilitate during change, and what kind of methodology should we follow? So again, like most of my content, there's no one size fits all, and I prefer a blended approach. So I will take you through a very generic methodology, and it's up to you to then, and up to a qualified practitioner, an experienced practitioner, to then support you with the details. So at a very simplistic level, we've got before the change, during the change, after the change, and then activities you do throughout a change. So before the change, you want to take on activities where you're designing the change and planning the change, and then during the change you're implementing the change and reviewing the change. After the change, you're sustaining the change and then again reviewing the change. And obviously throughout the change, we're continuously engaging with stakeholders to iterate and adapt the change as required. So this looks like more of a waterfall approach. So if you're using project management methodology, and if you were to run this agile, then obviously, which in a lot of cases in our environment now, where there's a VUCA environment, there's a lot of volatility and there's a lot of unknowns in our environment, things changing constantly that we're not aware of, businesses having to change their course of action. So you might be doing a before the change where you're designing the change and planning for it, and then halfway through you need to redesign certain elements while you move into during the change for other elements or other sprints if you're working in agile. So this is not a linear method. It looks linear, but you could be taking on various stages in different phases, really. So you could be during the change for some sprints or elements of the project and change, and you could be sustaining the change for other elements. So a very quick look into what activities you might do in each step. So before the change, if you're familiar with human-centered design, that can support you to design the change. It's a people-centric approach. So if you're designing for customers and clients, then you're really having the user at the center of your design. If it's a change for employees, then again, you've got your employee experience at the center of your design. So you're involving key stakeholders, and you can do a high-level stakeholder analysis. You almost need to. If you're designing the change, you need to know who needs to be involved in that, but it's also part of planning the change. You might use appreciative inquiry where you're looking at all, you're discovering, so you're doing a lot of discovery and into the strengths and what you want to build more of. You may be aligning to project methodology, so whether it's waterfall, agile, other methodologies, a blend. You would probably do a change complexity assessment where you understand the nature of the change, how many people is it impacting, is there any reputational impacts, legal impacts, those sorts of things. You might do high-level change communication and engagement strategies and planning at this stage. So if you're pretty clear on what your future state looks like, then you can go into more detailed planning at this stage. And then you'd want to do some kind of readiness checklist for the project team, but also the people that you're implementing the change with, and those who are impacted. So again, that's a pretty standard approach. You would have to update that pending your particular project requirements. And let's not forget that we're constantly engaging with key stakeholders, and we're constantly iterating and adapting. So this is not a linear model. During the change, so whatever phase you might be in, you would start implementing the change. So this could look like awareness sessions, training sessions, and engagement with key stakeholders, and again with those highly impacted. You might start off with a pilot for the change to then assess, review, and tweak the change. You would do pulse surveys throughout, in whether it's online, whether it's in person in focus groups. You need to decide what's best for your teams, and then updating and adapting the change approach as needed, continuously evaluating the benefits and benefits realization. Are you achieving the outcomes and the purpose of the change that you intended to begin with? We can get really task focused, so it's really good to reflect on that and to have milestones where you're reflecting on that continuously, and also implementing strategies to sustain the change. So some people do this through champions, some people do this with updating business processes. You almost have to do that in every case anyway, decision-making processes and so on. And we've got after the change, so sustaining the change, reviewing the change. So you might have a hypercare if it's a software update or change, technology update or change, reviewing strategies in place to sustain the change. Are they sustaining? Facilitating lessons learned, knowledge transfer to business as usual teams, or if you're an external consultant, making sure that knowledge is transferred to the business, and pulse surveys to support staff after the change. Do they have everything they need? Do managers have everything they need? And again, throughout the change, continuously engaging with stakeholders to iterate and adapt the change as required.